All right. Well, thank you. Welcome. Hello, all, and welcome to the Freethought Society's September meetup with Tom Krattenmaker as our speaker. My name is Michael Stephen Martin, and it is my pleasure to be the Zoom coordinator for the Freethought Society and your co-host for today's event, one of today's co-hosts. I hope those of you who logged on early enjoyed the music that we provided during the pre-event social. You got to hear some music by, well, that last one was Dreams Tonight by Always, Canadian pop band. Lose Your Smile by Beach House was in there, New Slang by the Shins, and I don't know if we heard Adventures in Solitude by the New Pornographers, but it's worth checking out. So those are some music that is enjoyed, some music enjoyed by Tom, our speaker, and stuff I like as well. We want to stay on target today, with our timing, so I'm officially starting the session by spotlighting my co-host and the president of the Freethought Society, Margaret Downey.
Thank you, Michael. Welcome, everyone, to the Freethought Society September 19th Zoom meeting. The Freethought Society serves as an online forum in which freethinkers can virtually meet, socialize, and exchange ideas. As freethinkers, our minds are not restrained by superstitions or prescribed dogmas that tell us what we can and cannot think. While some today would express independent thinking, freethinkers know that the unrestricted exchange of ideas has been the primary force of progress in all civilizations. As freethinkers, we want to better ourselves and our community through the unrestrained application of reason and human endeavors to address the local and global problems that confront us. Now, on the screen, you see a list of the Freethought Society volunteer opportunities, and we hope one of our opportunities will be of interest to you. We would welcome your participation in any committee. The Freethought Society is a nonprofit 501c3 educational organization, and this is why we hope you will be moved to make a donation today. A donation link will appear in the chat section a few times during the event, but if you miss it, the link is very simple. It's ftsociety.org. There you go. Now, to introduce today's speaker, Tom Krattenmaker, is Freethought Society board member, Victoria De La Torre.
Thank you, Margaret. Hi, everyone. So I'm really excited about our speaker today. Tom Krattenmaker is a columnist and author specializing in religion, beliefs, and values in the public life. He's a member of the USA Today board of contributors, and he has been a part-time columnist with the paper for 15 years. He's been writing pieces on everything from Christian infiltration of pro sports to the moral imperative to allow atheists into the Boy Scouts. In more recent years, he has also become a regular contributor to the Humanist magazine. Tom is also the author of 3 books, the most recent being Confessions of a Secular Jesus Follower, which was named one of the top 2 religion books of 2016 by the Religion News Association. His work has also won awards from the American Academy of Religion and Forward Reviews magazine, among many others. So please join me in welcoming our speaker today, Tom Krattenmaker.
Hi, everybody. I really appreciate you all being here. Good afternoon, good morning. Thanks for being here for another Zoom meeting. I bet you've had a few of those lately, am I right? I want to thank Margaret Downey and the Freethought Society for inviting me to speak, and everybody just pronounced my name correctly. And so major appreciation for that. That's a rare thing. Y'all got your act together. So as I said, I want to thank Margaret, and I want you to know I have the highest opinion of Margaret Downey. She and I have been friends and co-conspirators for a long time now, and she has supported me in so many ways, including the invitation to be with you today. Thanks, Margaret, and thanks to all of you who are Zooming in. You know, we were going to have this event in Philadelphia last May in person, and well, you know what happened. That talk got canceled like so many other things. But rescheduling on Zoom has made it possible for lots more people to attend regardless of location. And I hope we have you Zooming in from all 4 corners and everywhere in between. I do have one solemn note before we start. You know, I don't know about you, but I'm a little sleep deprived today that upsetting news about Ruth Bader Ginsburg came pretty late last night, at least for those of us on the East Coast. Yeah, she'll be missed. She was 5 feet 1 inch tall, but what a giant. Okay, we're here today to talk about secular transcendence, or as I like to call it, horizontal transcendence. Has anyone ever heard that phrase, horizontal transcendence? It popped into my head a few years ago while I was trying to come up with language that could describe some aspects of secular life and secular meaning making. The phrase occurred to me independently, but when I looked into it, I discovered that others had thought of it long before I did. And as I found out, there's a small but interesting academic literature exploring notions of horizontal transcendence as a counter to traditional religious thinking about up-down or vertical transcendence. A lot of what I'm going to say today is adapted from a manifesto of sorts that I wrote for the Humanist magazine a couple of years ago. In that article, I talk about the need for secular people to articulate who we are and what we're up to as non-religious citizens in a country where religious people continue to be the majority, the strong majority, actually. Not as strong a majority as they used to be, but still a strong majority. It seems to me that when we name something, when we find effective ways to describe something, we make it more real, and we enable ourselves and others to better implement it and live it out. When we clearly and forcefully articulate who we are and what we're about, the rest of society begins to understand us better. And hopefully we correct misperceptions they may have about us and heighten the influence we have on society. So that's kind of what I'm hoping to do today. Articulate and reinforce for you and hopefully for myself. I need as much reinforcement as I can get. Hope to articulate an important part of who we are and what we do as secular people. More specifically, as humanist people. Humanist being a label that certainly applies to me, and I suspect probably does to many of you as well. For this next part now, I'm afraid I'm going to have to bring you some bad news. Are you sitting down for this? Yeah, okay, you saw this coming and you sat down, good. What you need to know is that if you are not a God believer, not a participant in organized religion, well, your life is sad. Your life has a hole in it. According to the story often told about secular folks, by foregoing church and other religious communities and the beliefs that they are built around, we condemn ourselves to lives without hope, without fellowship, without joy and meaning, without anything greater than our empty, self-centric existences. According to an article I read in The Week, secular attempts at creating community and meaning are a futile attempt to reverse engineer what we're supposed to get from church. The writer, a woman named Bonnie Christian, goes on to say, quote, "Church unites us in a shared purpose. It binds together community and significance. It fills a space in our lives that is meant to be filled," end quote. Now, this writer is hardly the only one who thinks this way. Even some secular thought leaders do. Are you familiar with Alain de Botton? I'm guessing a lot of you probably are. He's an atheist philosopher and purveyor of practical wisdom who leads something called the School of Life. A commentary on de Botton's School of Life website observes that post-religious societies lack interest, quote, in what we can term transcendence, contact with eternal and grand phenomena, in comparison with which our ordinary preoccupations can come to feel unimportant and redemptively insignificant in our own eyes. With the receding of religion, there is, in general, still quoting de Botton now, there is in general nothing left to awe us or relativize us. Our immediate difficulties and burdens, our conflicts and pains are all there is, end quote. No religion, no transcendence. So says Christian theologian Carl R. Trueman. Great name for a theologian, right? Trueman. He writes in the conservative journal, First Things, quote, "For those who have abandoned belief in God," I like how he says abandoned, that's something we could talk about. "For those who have abandoned belief in God, the quest for meaning has proved as chimerical as it has continual. The quest for transcendence seems to be dying before our eyes," end quote. Hey, do you have kids, young kids? If you do, please don't subject them to your secularity and the emptiness and nihilism that go with it, or the despair to which you are doomed, supposedly, if you don't believe in a heavenly afterlife. Yes, lie to them. Tell them God and heaven are real. This is what a therapist named Erica Komisar argued in an op-ed that appeared in the Wall Street Journal last year. Okay, I'm going to stop being silly now. I was being a little dramatic a minute ago when I started this part of the talk, acting like I had bad and presumably accurate news for you. I don't think the stuff I'm citing is accurate. It's fake news, you know that. But none of us should be surprised to hear this, or surprised that a lot of people think this way. It's been ingrained in Western minds for centuries now that religion is where people find meaning and goodness, and that engagement with the divine is how people experience transcendence. But despite what his name might suggest, what the theologian Truman says is not true. We secular people can experience transcendence if we know where to look, if we know how to cultivate it. It's my contention that when we focus our eyes and minds, we can see the contours of a compelling vision of secular transcendence coming into view. We already intuit this vision, unarticulated though it remains. We already live it out in varying degrees. How so? Well, let me tell you. Let's start by talking about that term transcendence. What does that even mean? Well, it can be thought of as exceeding normal limits or rising above the mundane. As this rising language would suggest, it's usually understood as something that operates in a vertical direction, in a hierarchical way. You know, there's the higher power God on top, humans worshiping from below, seeking transcendence in an upward direction, in a different reality beyond or maybe above the physical world. But you know what? Transcendence is found on another plane too, and in this reality. We are surrounded by much that matters to our left and to our right, in front of us and behind us. Each of our lives is set in a complex web of people, some of them near to us, most of them far away, some familiar, most of them not. We're inhabitants of a planetary home that is bursting with an almost infinite variety of life. A home that is immense, yet at the same time dwarfed by the vast universe and the strains imposed by our large and needy human population. Each of us stands at a pinpoint in a mind-blowingly long span of time. It stretches back millions of years and forward for countless more, we hope. All of our fates are intertwined across space and time and our shared humanity. This is the transcendence available to the non-religious. We live it by getting outside of ourselves, by extending ourselves, not to the heavens, but to the horizon. I've had it suggested to me, and maybe you have had it suggested to you, whether it's articles or books or conversations with religious folk, that it must be depressing for me to live without the comfort and inspiration of God belief or participation in church. I've had more than one well-meaning person tell me they feel sorry for me because of the lack of religion in my life, the lack of transcendence. All right, I appreciate their concern, but their worry is unnecessary, seriously. The truth is, churches don't always deliver on their mission to bring truth and transformation, purpose and meaning. And even those that do generally require a price of admission, you know, a confession of supernatural belief that remains too high for secular people, even those who might appreciate the value of some of the stuff that religion does. Moreover, the secular sphere has more and more venues where people do create and experience community and support and uplift. As I've said to my religious conversation partners, no, you don't need to feel sorry for us secular people. Our lives are not bereft. We do have access to meaning and purpose and joy and to transcendence. We reach them on the horizontal plane, in our relationships with other people near and far, in our love for the ocean and mountains and the green life budding on the trees each spring, in the profusion of orange and red and yellow we see in the autumn trees, which is starting to happen now here in New England. Through the music and art and literature we experience in great films and theater and even great TV shows, in our appreciation for the stories and lives that have unfolded for millennia before us, and we hope will continue unfolding long after we're gone. I really believe that in the fast-growing secular population where God-focused transcendence is not our lot, we do get outside ourselves. We do taste the transcendent. The question isn't whether, but how and to what extent. And yes, I think there is potential for a more robust engagement with transcendence. We fulfill this unrealized potential by further extending ourselves laterally, spherically, horizontally. We fulfill this potential by acting on the truth that there is so much more than me here now. So yeah, that's how I think of horizontal transcendence, living a life in a way that understands there is more than me, more than here, more than now. Want to break that down? Okay. Now, to hear it from alarmed religionists, lives without God are consigned to the trivial, self-defeating pursuit of the almighty me. Me. They say it's about striving for and achieving or buying the things that I want, engaging the world on the basis of what's in it for me. But we know and we see a different truth. We see it in the selfless service of countless non-believers, from activists to nonprofit leaders to people who run and work for socially beneficial businesses. As secular America grows, we see positive and philanthropic forms of secular life gain strength. We know that there are secular people out there giving of ourselves and our time. We know there is so much more than me, and we act on it by doing more for the benefit of others and, frankly, receiving from them in turn. So that's what I mean by more than me. What about more than here? What I'm talking about there is that, well, many people proceed today under the illusion that the devastation of human habitat is happening or is going to happen someplace else. And they think that they, in their sheltered enclave, are immune. They aren't. We're all in the same boat, it seems to me. It has no life rafts. And if it goes down, we all go down together. Think about what's been happening lately just in this country. You know, storms, devastating wildfires. It's like we're seeing the fulfillment of the apocalyptic lyrics of that Rolling Stones classic, Gimme Shelter. The fires are sweeping and the floods are threatening. These phenomena are setting in motion ever larger masses of migrants and refugees whose will to survive cannot be stopped by walls. It's clearer and clearer in an age of climate change that the fate of our here is inextricably bound up in what's happening there. And hey, if you have any doubts about the global nature of things, just think for a minute about this pandemic that we're going through. So as to the time element, I want to push back a little bit on the common wisdom that tells us to, quote, live in the moment. I'd say yes, but not only in the moment. Lives of meaning are not confined to the present moment, to the now. In our pursuit of horizontal transcendence, we're compelled to appreciate and wise to accept what is given to us by those who came before us. I'm talking about knowledge and philosophies and cultural treasures. We're compelled to accept our obligation to future generations who we rely on to continue humanity's long story and who rely on us to keep this thing going while we're in the driver's seat and to hand it over in some kind of decent condition. So lives of horizontal transcendence know that there is so much more than now. So that's the basic concept. More than me, more than here, more than now. This is a form of wisdom, a form of transcendence that's available to secular people today, waiting to be more fully grasped, more fully lived out. It's my sense that we already intuit this broader engagement and that we live it at least partially. You might ask how, what's an example? Well, here you go. Are you familiar with the Secular Week of Action? By the way, I know that's something that the Freethought Society has supported and participated in. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, the Secular Week of Action is a nationwide service campaign by humanists and other secular groups to demonstrate our values and responsible citizenship by doing projects to support our communities and fellow human beings. People devote thousands and thousands of hours doing things like cleaning up bikeways and highways, raising money for food pantries, doing blood drives, raising awareness about climate change. Interestingly, the Secular Week of Action each year coincides with the National Day of Prayer. Interesting juxtaposition, right? Prayer and action. Equally, horizontal transcendence connects us to human beings in the future, in the generations that will follow ours, presumably, we hope. And that serves up another example of what horizontal transcendence looks like in action. It compels us to face this question: what kind of society are the current inhabitants of the planet going to pass on to those who follow? Are we okay with the thought of sticking them with a world governed by angry nationalism and authoritarianism, a world poisoned by racism? If not, we must win the fight for global cooperation, for democratic values, for racial justice. Think about the generation that are now in their childhoods. Are we okay with the thought of leaving them with an uninhabitable planet? If not uninhabitable, at least severely degraded? If not, we must contain climate change. It should be a source of shame, but more importantly, a source of motivation for the generations now in charge to look squarely and honestly at what we're doing to the younger generations. As we all know, it has fallen largely to young activists like Greta Thunberg or the Sunrise Movement to challenge the so-called adults in charge, the adults in the room, and get them to face up to the enormous challenge posed by our worsening climate emergency and to act with the urgency and seriousness that are required now. So I hope those examples clarify what I mean by horizontal transcendence. As those latter two examples suggest, well, yes, there are threats to quell. There's hard work to do, but I want to be clear that there's joy too. There's joy in this pursuit of horizontal transcendence. This is the joy that comes from the satisfaction of a job well done, the joy that comes from all the good things, large and small, that we receive when we widen our vision and our embrace, when we enlarge our perspective, and we open ourselves to something more, when we experience horizontal transcendence. So this joy I refer to, well, it's the kind of joy that revels in the nature of horizons. As you know from your traveling experience, the horizon is something you never reach. It has this funny habit of continuing to move back as we move toward it. But we don't get frustrated by this lack of arrival or this lack of finality. We realize that's a good thing because it means there's always more to discover and experience. And we know that the journey is the destination in a horizontally transcendent life. So to start wrapping things up, no, meaning is not vanishing in the cultural spaces where religion is receding in our more secular age. Transcendence isn't dying before our eyes. Just a quick check-in. I noticed a couple things on the chat. I'm not paying super close attention because I'm focusing on the talk, but pretty soon we're going to have time for comments and questions. Now, let's consider the case of Isabella. Who's she? All right, earlier I mentioned there's an interesting scholarly literature around horizontal transcendence. In reviewing some of that, I came upon the story of a young woman named Isabella, who is the focus of a research paper by these three scholars named Thomas Coleman, Christopher Silver, and Ralph Hood. Isabella describes herself as an atheist, not spiritual either, but she lives a life that's rich in meaning and purpose. She's able to experience awe and wonder and interconnectedness. You probably know people like her. Hopefully that's your life experience. More than most people, this young woman, Isabella, has great language to describe the meaning that she cultivates in her utterly secular life. She sees beauty in the universe. And as she puts it, quote, "If the universe is beautiful, we're part of that beauty," end quote. So the researchers in this paper go on to talk about how Isabella demonstrates how a horizontally transcendent view of the world, one without reference to a vertically transcendent reality, I'm quoting now, can have an exceptionally high amount of purpose and meaning. A purpose and meaning that are at least on par with those worldviews commonly expressed through explicit religious and spiritual frameworks. They go on to say that Isabella, lost in the moment with a conscious focus on nature and the universe, finds resolve and comfort in its beauty. They say this comfort and beauty arrive at her not through a religious or spiritual path, but through the very secular observation and admiration of the world around her, end quote. It's striking to me how the researchers say that this kind of transcendence is on par with religious frameworks and language. I'll be interested to hear what all of you think of that assertion and whether you see this and experience this in your life too. That'll be good fodder for the questions and comments part of the event, which we're getting to soon. As I mentioned earlier, this talk I'm giving today is based on an article that I wrote for the Humanist magazine. Now, in this last part, I'm going to draw from an article I wrote more recently for the Humanist, kind of a sequel. It was an article that had the headline, "Life and Why It Must Continue." So how's that for a grandiose headline for you? Here's the thing. This horizontal transcendence that I'm talking about, on the most basic level, is about a broader and more robust engagement with life. The life that we have in time, here on the earth. This life, as Martin Hägglund puts it in the title of that really important book of his that came out recently. Are you familiar with that book by Martin Hägglund, This Life? That's another thing we can talk about in the questions and comments. You see, horizontal or secular transcendence is not some lame consolation prize for those of us who do not experience religious transcendence. This life is not something we grit our teeth and settle for as non-theists, as people who do not experience or perceive a God or expect a heavenly afterlife. The purpose we find to sustain and improve this life is not some pale version of the godly purpose that religious people claim. It's the real deal. We know it's probably the only deal there is, and it's urgently compelling. Given the very real threats that are piling up against our planet and its populations, the long-term and continuation and flourishing of this life is no longer something we can take for granted or something we can neglect. We don't need a supposedly higher purpose because the one that we have right here on the ground, right under our noses, is of incalculable importance. It's this life, and it is at its best amazing, which is something that our research subject, Isabella, captures so well, which is something captured also by none other than Charles Darwin. Yes, a Darwin reference. Just recall the famous and inspiring closing lines of his book, The Origin of Species, which are so relevant to our discussion today. Darwin speaks of the grandeur in seeing life as it is, and he marvels at, quote, "the endless forms of life, most beautiful and most wonderful, that have been and are being evolved," end quote. This to me is the gaze of horizontal transcendence and the gateway to going beyond ourselves and fully embracing this world and this life in all its awesomeness and grittiness and resilience and precariousness and beauty and flaws, and doing all we can to keep it going and make it better. All right, so that's the note I'm going to end on with my prepared remarks. Thank you for listening. I'm really looking forward to hearing your comments and questions.
Thank you very much, Tom. Thank you for your speech there, your lecture. I enjoyed that. Everybody, how about lovely round of applause for Tom. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the applause.
Yes, I'm going to send this back over to Margaret here. She's got some comments before we get into the Q&A. Oh, Margaret, you are muted. You're going to need to unmute yourself. Let's see. Maybe. Looking good, but we can't hear you yet.
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Okay. So thank you very much, Tom. Before we open the question and answer session of this presentation, I'd like to remind the audience that the Freethought Society depends on donations to continue to offer educational programs and speakers who enlighten and motivate. So please see the chat section of the Zoom for a direct link to the Freethought Society's donation page, and any donation amount would be appreciated. We used to have our meetings live and people would drop in $5 in our kitty, and that was very helpful. And now Michael Stephen Martin will tell you how to participate in the question and answer session.
Margaret, since we're doing some informational things now, there is something I wanted to shoehorn in, if you'll allow me.
Yes, of course, you're our
So
guest.
as Margaret knows, I have a mailing list, and I send out a little notice to people on the mailing list whenever I have a new piece coming out, whether it's USA Today or The Humanist. And if you want to be on that mailing list, and I hope some of you do want to be, you can just go to my website, tomkrattenmaker.com. You'll get my email address there. You simply send me an email and I will add you to the list. You'll get an email like every 5 weeks or something like that.
And I love getting them. They're such great articles. Thank you for keeping me on the list.
Okay, let's, for the Q&A portion of today, what we're going to do is if you have a question that you'd like to ask Tom, please send it to me in the chat via Zoom. If you'd like to ask yourself, I will spotlight you in the order they're received and call on you. And then if you would rather that I ask for you, please just preface your question with the words, please ask, and I'll read it out loud for you. I've got one right now that we'll start with Tom, if you're ready to go. And let's see, I'm going to read the question. In what ways do the ideas presented here coincide with those expressed in Sam Harris's book, Waking Up, A Guide to Spirituality Without Religion? And in what ways are they different?
That's a really thoughtful question. And thankfully I read that book. And thankfully I had a chance one night to spend some time with Sam Harris, and he was really delightful. I was his interviewer at an event in Portland, Oregon, where I used to live. And it was an event that was part of that book tour for that book. So I don't think that his book and my comments today are similar, except that big picture, they're all part of this project of, you might say, secular spirituality. I know that's a problematic word. It all depends on your definition. And they're all part of secular meaning making, creating flourishing, meaningful lives for people who are not religious or perhaps don't even consider themselves spiritual in the conventional sense. And it's interesting to me to observe what Sam Harris has been doing in his career since the book that really brought him to fame, which I think was called The End of Faith. So he sort of spoke his piece in terms of critiquing religion and then sort of pivoted to thinking about making meaning in secular lives.
Okay.
I think Sam was actually, he's really into meditation. And I think he came up with the idea of that other book during one of his meditation trips. He's really a brilliant man, and he just, needs to think about these things for his next book.
Did you just take a screenshot? All right, let's go to the next question here. Let's see, in the chat, I'm going to read this question for the asker. Tom, do you follow Mr. Deity on YouTube, and do you agree with his satire that God is really just acting more or less like a movie producer?
I am so sorry to disappoint, but no, I'm not familiar.
Oh,
I'd love to hear more about it, though. This isn't, why don't we have this person, I'm sorry, I didn't catch the name. Tell us more about, would you say Mr. Deity?
Mr. Deity, yeah. The
Tell us
person
more about
asked,
Mr. Deity.
He's on YouTube and he's nuts and he's brilliant. Let me plug this in so I'm not making feedback. You can watch him.
is this Sue talking?
Really is a movie producer, but he records these scenarios as if, okay, so what are we going to do at the beginning? There's going to be a void. Okay, a void. What's a void? And it's it's hysterical. And then they have the big bang. And well, are people going to believe this? Well, I don't know. Well, we'll have to sell the whole afterlife thing. Yeah, that'll work. They'll go for that. And they're discussing how to create, basically the Abrahamic religions as if it was a movie project. And so I just thought I'd bring that up to everybody because I sat in this chair and laughed my ass off for 3 hours straight yesterday. So if you want some transcendence, go find Mr. Deity on YouTube. It's all there.
Okay, thanks for that. Michael, Did you see the comment from Victoria? Is it in the chat?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that for a minute. Is that okay?
You've got the floor, Tom. Let's do it.
I'd like to hear Victoria elaborate, but first I want to just confess my confusion about that term spirituality and my confusion about whether what I'm doing is spirituality or not. I recall a few years ago, I was on a panel at the Religion News Association and I said, I don't even know what spirituality means and I don't think I'm spiritual. But then I heard other definitions of it and I thought, well, maybe what I'm doing is some kind of secular spirituality. I guess it all depends on your definition. But the definition I heard more recently was so down to earth. It was the idea that transcendence and spirituality, both of them are getting outside yourself. And so if spirituality is as simple as that, then maybe I'm spiritual. But I used to think it meant like crystals and new age stuff, and that wasn't me, so.
Victoria, did you want to chime in on that?
Yes, I think sometimes for people who are secular, but maybe don't want to say the word secular or atheist, sometimes not religious, but spiritual. And I think that can get lost in confusion a lot. So I do prefer, now that I hear you say it, I think that transcendence is such a better term for it. We sometimes want to find a term that brings us maybe closer to the cosmos and away from religion. So I think instead of saying, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual, people can just instead say that they connect to transcendence, or they can use those terms. But I think it really kind of fixes that gap that people have in that kind of gray area of not really sure if you're just not religious or, not spiritual, I suppose. Well, thank you for that.
As you know, I struggle too. And for some people, when they hear you say you're spiritual, they might think, oh, you're kind of religious.
Right. Or like a new age kind of thing going on. So.
Yeah, that's the whole supernatural thing too.
Right. Yes.
Because it can imply that I'm into supernatural stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's complex. Well, it's true of many things. Definitions matter so much. And so many of the terms that get thrown around in the discourse today have multiple definitions. And I think people should always be clear, what they mean.
Yeah, can I say something here?
Yeah, who am I hearing speak?
This is Marjorie.
Marjorie.
Yeah, it's Marjorie. Hi. I much prefer transcendence to spirituality. I often find that when I tell people that I'm an atheist, and as they get to know me a little bit better and I talk about some wonderful experience that I had out in the world, they said, see, you're not really an atheist. See, you do believe in God, but you just believe in God in your own way because you wouldn't have these feelings. And I do feel a little bullied by people who insist on telling me that it's my spirituality. I know someone who is addicted to 12-step programs, and he really enjoys talking about how our spirituality affects our lives. And, he has a social movie watching group, and he said, well, next time let's talk about spirituality. And I said, well, what if we're really not spiritual? Well, how do you define spirituality? And I ended up talking at some point in an unrelated moment about a Jonathan Franzen quote about being on a bus full of protesters and talking about the joy of being with a bus full of people with whom you profoundly agree. And he said, that's your spirituality. And I'm thinking, no, it's not. It's not. But transcendence is a word I can definitely buy into. It takes me out of myself and into the community. And that the word spirituality comes from spirit is, almost by definition, something that we're not likely to hang our hats on. And that's all I want to say about that. Thank you.
So that was a Jonathan Franzen quote?
Yeah.
It reminded me of the experience I have sometimes at concerts or shows at music clubs. Because a lot of the bands, I'm really, really into music. And a lot of the bands that I really love are not super well known. And so most of my friends and acquaintances aren't familiar with them. But then you go to the concert and you're surrounded by hundreds of other people who love that band. And they're all like jumping up and down and like mouthing the lyrics. And for me, you evoke that when you use the Franzen quote.
Right. Yeah. It's a communal experience. You share it with other people. I had the same experience when I went to the American Crossword Puzzle Tournament last year. And I was sitting next to someone who said, finally, I'm in a room full of people who get it. That's so great. And, we can, community is just as important to the secularist as it is to a religious person for all the reasons you articulated, Tom.
Cool, thanks.
Sure.
Thank you, Marjorie, for your question. And I apologize if I'm having any video problems. My screen's a bit silly today. I have another question for you, Tom. Somebody's asking, how do non-believers reach out to believers without offending them, and vice versa on topics relating to religion, but without proselytizing? So I guess that means how to talk to each other without proselytizing to each other.
Yeah, I have a lot of experience at that, and I do have a lot of religious people in my life, and I have good relationships with many of them. And for a while, one of my writing subspecialties was evangelicals, believe it or not. Now, these were the more progressive or open, small wing of the evangelical movement. But often it's things that work for me have to do with showing curiosity and listening to people. And then showing that you understood what they said, maybe echoing back to show that you got it. And then talking about your own experience without saying, this is the only truth and you have to believe this way. People might swap stories or experiences. I'm pretty low key in those kinds of interactions. And I tend to lower the stakes and the expectations. I don't expect to be converted, and I don't expect to convert them. But I do think that some rapport can be built. And I've even had encounters with white evangelical Christians who aren't from the more progressive or open wing, who are like the hardcore ones. And even there, I go in with diminished expectations. I know I'm not going to like change their mind about anything in like a 10-minute interaction. But I try to show that they can interact with a secular liberal, and that I'm not some like beast or demon who's going to be like a jerk in the conversation. So as I said a minute ago, I lower the stakes. I don't really expect all that much to happen. But I try to exert whatever little bit of influence I can have, and I'm open to being influenced a little bit.
You wrote a book about secular Jesus believer, or I can't remember the exact title.
Yeah, Confessions of a Secular Jesus Follower.
Yeah. Was that something that would relate to this subject too?
Well, it does relate to what's happening nationally and globally with respect to increasing amounts of fluidity when it comes to religion and spirituality and belief and values, people mixing and matching, people crossing boundaries. One thing that I liked about that concept and that title is that technically you can't be a secular Jesus follower. When I talk to humanist groups about that book, I always emphasize the secular part, because some secular groups, they hear that word Jesus and they get their alarm bells going a little bit. And frankly, I don't blame them, because they've heard Jesus evoked in some really off-putting ways and some negative contexts. And so I always emphasize that for me, I see like a package of values and some examples for how to engage with life and with other people. And I find that inspiring and instructive. And I've tried to incorporate those values into my own set of core ways of being in the world and ways of interacting with people and with issues and so forth. So it's been an interesting experience. It was a really controversial thing I did, coming out with that claim and writing a book about it. And there were some people who loved it, both on the humanist and the Christian side, and other people who were like, no, you cannot do that. You cannot say that. And then there were some secular audiences that didn't want to hear about it because they heard that J word, and that was going to like set off the alarm bells.
All right, Tom, ready for the next question? Let's see, I've got somebody who would like to ask, or I'll ask for them. I'd be curious to hear Tom talk a bit about his statements and book on following Jesus as a model for a meaningful life and where he is in his own belief system path. And then in parentheses, it says, here's what I got from a Google search in Confessions of a Secular Jesus Follower.
Oh, what did Google turn up?
Krattenmaker shares his surprising conclusion about where input and inspiration might best be found in the figure of Jesus. I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, I could probably answer that best by giving some examples about why this figure of Jesus. And again, I want to emphasize, I'm not talking about the religious stuff that Jesus said and did in the New Testament. I'm talking about things that you might see like in the Sermon on the Mount and some of the other stuff. But one thing that stands out for me is the non-defensiveness. And I really tried to incorporate that into my life, both my professional life and my personal life. And another one, interestingly enough, is anxiety and worry. I have a whole chapter about that in the book. Because anxiety is something that I've struggled with off and on in my own life. And I know there are other people in my family who have struggled with it. And I know people who, and I have a temptation myself to be overcome with worry. And it's so counterproductive, and it's so damaging to living a flourishing life. And it's striking to me the stuff that Jesus said and did about worry of all things and anxiety on the pages of the New Testament. And I've had some success in folding that into my life and really internalizing that and going with it. And so I said I was going to give a couple of examples of what it's meant to me, and those are a couple of them right there.
Thank you. Tom, the next question, please ask, what can be done about magical thinking within the atheist community? For example, skeptics tend to be atheist, but the reverse isn't true.
Wait, I'm not sure I understand. Help me with that.
Well, let's see, I'm going to read it as it's written. What can be done about magical thinking within the atheist community? Example, skeptics tend to be atheist, but the reverse isn't true. If the person who submitted that would like to speak in or chime in, they are.
Yeah, please do. And I'd like to hear I'd like to hear a comment too. As I said a couple times, I expect that this is more than Q&A. This is also comments and questions. So expound, please.
Yeah, that was me.
Hi.
Spotlight here.
Yeah. So what I've seen in I guess looking in the skeptics community and the atheist community, there's a lot of overlap between the two. But within the skeptics community, they get to atheism via skepticism. But atheists tend to not necessarily be skeptical. So there's one thing that made them an atheist, or one set of circumstances that made them an atheist. But they may still believe in like faith healing type things or pseudoscience. Really? And at least that's my experience. I guess you haven't had the same experience.
No, I'm going to be perfectly candid, and maybe I shouldn't do this as a speaker, but I don't really know very much about that. I don't really have a thoughtful response or a well-informed response, but I'd love to hear other people chime in if they have things to say about this.
Well, we have noticed, and I've been in this community for 30 years, so what was a big point of contention was that skeptics are not all atheists. So a skeptic can have a lot of, questioning about homeopathic cures and chiropractic and, all of these claims of the paranormal. But when it comes to their emotional attraction to a religious belief, they don't want to let go of that, even though the questions are proposed skeptically to them. They want to hold on to that emotional connection of a religion. So I've seen the reverse of what you're talking about. Is it no, Nirav? Nirav?
Yes, Nirav. Yeah, it's the reverse. But I guess to use your example, if you have atheists who believe in ghosts or who believe the paranormal generally, or in homeopathy,
Yeah,
that would,
very
I guess, be
seldom.
more. Yeah.
Very seldom do we run across that. But the reverse is very true. In fact, there had been, a lot of controversy about who the speakers are at a skeptic event.
Really?
Yeah, they don't like to have an overabundance of atheists, shoving down their throat to take a look at the religion that they're buying into. So we found that with the amazing meetings and through the Center for Inquiry's skeptical meetings. The skeptics didn't want to be brushed in the atheist word.
Really? All right. Well, as I've indicated, this is an area where I don't have much experience. Most of my travels in the secular sphere have been more in humanism. And I've been to a lot of AHA meetings and meetings of the Yale humanist community. So this has been educational for me. Thank you. I am fascinated by the larger issue this evokes, which is, what do people believe and why? And it makes me think of conspiracy theories, which are such a thing right now.
Tom, this might be a good subject for a USA Today article.
What, something about QAnon?
Yeah, something about, how people have a difficult time throwing away their emotional connection to something that doesn't make sense.
Well, it's surprising to me because when I think of skeptics, I think of critical thinking. But human beings are complicated beings, and we can have contradictory impulses and ideas in our head at the same time.
Oh, I can add one more thing.
Oh, yeah?
We host a Friday the 13th party. It's an anti-superstition party.
Oh, I've heard about that.
Yeah, and we get a lot of people at our events, but I've had atheists say to me, I don't want to go to your party. I still get the creeps about, walking under a ladder or seeing a black cat, or, no, I pick up a penny when I see it, they don't want to be testing faith or something. It's just weird. And it's only happened a few times where an atheist will not come to our anti-superstition party. They're atheists, but they're having a hard time leaving those superstitious feelings aside.
Yep, human beings, complex creatures.
We've
All right,
got
thanks for educating me.
one of those complex creatures would like to ask you a question right now. Bruce Costa, you are up, so I'm going to spotlight you so you may ask your video. You've got the floor.
Hi, Bruce.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Michael and Margaret, for putting this on. This is just and thanks for the compliment that I'm a complex creature. I'll strive worthy of it. So I just wonder if Tom or anyone has a thought about a problem that I have. I feel like all the answers to the prior questions are just contained in all of the sticky nature of our bias,
Our bias.
of our susceptibility to bias. So we all just kind of have a hard time getting the things we're taught off of us as we run into evidence to the contrary, and people do it in increasingly progressive or more hesitant ways, you could even say. And so, well, yeah, all right, maybe there's not the exact prescription in Christianity for the afterlife, but there's a bigger spirituality, or I'm a deist, not a theist, or whatever the heck. So if I could just frame my question around that idea. I've been an atheist since I was 14 years old, and asked the reasonable questions of my priest that a reasonably intelligent 14-year-old would ask. But in that time, I have experienced no less, and ever, in fact, an ever increasing desire to pay attention to the suffering of people who are less fortunate than me, right? I mean, and I see not a lot of heads nodding here. It's just, how can you not do that, And then along comes Peter Singer and says, don't soil your suit for the little girl drowning in the puddle next to you. And if you're going to soil your suit, what do you have to say about Sudan? So, so now I'm an entrepreneur and I have some businesses, and in every one, I try to get
here. Was that just
everybody
me?
involved in some.
Bruce, you might need to repeat the last sentence just to make sure we got a little stuttered there.
Exactly.
Apologies. I'm an entrepreneur, and I have been my entire adult life. And in every organization I operate, one of which is a karate school here in Upper Bucks County, and all of my students to test for black belt have to do something philanthropic.
Really?
You're literally not allowed to test. Like, it's my fiefdom. You're just not getting a black belt from me. You got to be good at karate, but you got to do something meaningful too. Like, it's just a no-brainer to me to sew this, to stitch this in to anything I do, And so, but here's my problem is that the world can't just be made up of idiots like me. Right? Like you were talking about Sam Harris earlier. We can't have a world constructed only we can't have all the problems in the world solved in a way that depends on humanity being constituted of ethical superheroes, right? There have to be incentives. And I can tell you, as a former Christian, if I go to church every week, I'm going to have a lovely food experience multiple times a year. I'm going to be going over people's houses multiple times a year. I'm going to be getting invited to weddings and birthday parties. And by God, there's somebody that's going to lead me by the nose to make a contribution that I wouldn't have thought of myself. Now, I've seen every permutation of some kind of a service group or something to supplant that connective tissue for those of us who've abandoned it. But
Well,
it's small stuff, and I just wonder if anybody has any thoughts on what, except for, one out of every 50 entrepreneurs who wants to get something going, So
some of the stuff you describe happening in churches, what's happening now in this secular space is that people are creating those through organizations like the Freethought Society and like the humanist group that I've been involved in. But it's just in its infancy. It's really small. And it's so new compared to religion, which has been around literally for millennia. But I think most of these communal experiences that are such a vital part of religious communities can happen in secular ways.
What's very interesting, the last secular week of action was planned just before the pandemic broke out, and we had 3 events planned in coordination with a church.
Really?
Yes, we outreached to a church, and we were going to do food packing at Philabundance, and we were going to do feeding the homeless. So, we had to cancel all of those events, but I thought it was a wonderful way of showing that the secular community can work with the religious community, and we're all doing the same work. They think they're doing it for their God. We're doing it because it's the right thing to do for our fellow human beings.
That's awesome, Margaret. What
That's
was
awesome.
What was the denomination of the church?
It was Fundamental Christian Church. In fact,
Really?
the leader that I was involved in planning these things with ended up, he's now working for the Trump reelection. So,
That is an amazing anecdote, Margaret, and really cool that you teamed up that way. Oh, you said it didn't happen though because of the pandemic, but you still forged that relationship, and I still think that something fascinating happened there.
But what was really funny is they have all this money, and they rented a bus, and they were going to fill this bus with their volunteers. And I'm thinking, oh, I just hope one or two people come to the Fill Abundance, for the Freethought Society. And then I was thinking, oh, maybe we could share their bus and let them pay for it.
That's so cool. That is so. Talk about
I love that kind of thing.
That's
Could you say that again? That broke up a
article
little
for
bit.
all of us, please, Margaret. I'm sorry. I said Margaret was suggesting you write an article, Tom. I would just like to suggest that Margaret writes an article, a how-to article for all of us. I have 22 churches within a 2-mile radius of where I sit in Upper Bucks County. I could really use that article.
What town are you in? I used to live in Bucks County. Are you in Doylestown or something?
Oh, I'm in Percy. I'm 20 minutes from Doylestown.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bruce, did you see the Freethought Society committees you can volunteer for?
I did, Margaret. I did. I think you've said that to me before too.
Okay.
Sorry.
Good job working that in, Margaret.
Yeah, right.
She is a professional.
No doubt.
Tom, I have another question here that I will ask on the asker's behalf. He's asking, are you familiar with the effective altruism movement?
Yeah.
If so, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah. So I'm coming to you from Yale University, which is where I work. I'm specifically at Yale Divinity School. And I've learned that there is a very strong student group doing effective altruism. They're called like Yale Effective Altruists or something. And a few times when the Yale Humanist community was going, we intersected with them a little bit. So yeah, that's a fascinating movement. It's an interesting juxtaposition, right? Effectiveness and altruism. And I think that's great because if you are going to be altruistic and try to do things to improve the fate of humanity and the experiences of human beings, you want it to be effective. So I like the application of effectiveness and probably critical thinking to this work that some people may think just comes from the heart. So it's a really good melding of head and heart, isn't it?
All right. I think that brings us up to date with our questions, unless anybody would like to raise a hand right now and get in a last-minute comment. Then, Tom, there also were some comments. I don't know how much time you've had to read inside the chat. Some people have maybe not asked direct questions, but made comments. Anything you'd like to respond on? I think there was one about polling for non-believers and the lack of questions that are, terms that we have to identify. One of them being, let's see, here we go. In polls where they ask about religion, there's almost never a category for atheists. The closest they come to is to say non-affiliated, which includes mostly religious or spiritual adherents. We should be working with these pollsters to be more realistic.
Yeah, the polling is pretty bad. And so that resonates with me. And the other problem, and I've read scholars writing about this, when researchers are studying the secular movement, they sort of do it on religious terms. They're understood for what they are not, namely religious, and for what they don't have, namely religion. So there's a real lack of ability for society and for the research community to keep up with what's happening in the secular sphere. You want to hear an example? So my 2016 book, The Secular Jesus Follower one, that got an award at the Religion News Association. At their religion book awards, the two top winners were both secular books. Mine was number 2, and the first book was a book by Osmond. I think it's Catherine Osmond, and it was about secular meaning making. So these two secular books were the number 1 and 2 in the religion book awards.
Wow.
That's strange.
Jason Hoblin has a comment. Jason, are you there?
Oh, hi, Margaret. I retracted my my request directly to Michael, but I guess since you called me out, I'll go ahead and speak. I am shirtless. Too bad. My question about this horizontal transcendence, I'm kind of looking, exploring it, the ideas. First time I've ever heard of it, right? So is that my first thing is comes to mind. I have a couple comments here. Is this necessarily mutually exclusive to what would be considered vertical transcendence? Let's say, of things that are hierarchical in society, right? By whether it's public status or someone's successful in business, right? They've gone on that vertical quote unquote transcendence, right? They've made it to the top.
Do you want me to jump in? Because I have an
Sure, yeah, and
answer.
then I'll come back.
They are not mutually exclusive. We can see ways where secular people have not only horizontal, but also vertical transcendence. I mean, think about like higher purpose or like a deeply rooted commitment to something.
My dream board, right? If I've got a dream board, I'm aiming for.
And with religious people, you can see that there's a horizontal dimension too. That's where they sort of implement their beliefs. They do that sort of on the ground in this horizontal way.
So
that's a really perceptive comment and question. Thank you.
Thank you. And to that horizontal axis, I was looking for, I'm trying to relate to your concept here, right? So I'm looking for things that apply to me personally. And I don't, when it comes to the communal stuff, I'm not as interested, right? I recharge alone. I work better alone. But that doesn't mean I'm necessarily antisocial, right? Or don't see the value of when communities get together and get things done.
Jason, I know you would give the shirt off your back for someone.
And he
right.
just
Well,
did.
no, but I'm going to something specific here. I'm going to the concept of food, which the other guy, I think his name was Bruce, brought up about this concept of food. So when I'm eating, right, I will sit down at my desk and I will turn on YouTube and I will watch. A lot of times, like I watch a raccoon guy in Canada that feeds raccoons, or I'll listen to somebody else, right? So what I'm doing is I'm fulfilling my tens of hundreds of thousands of years of socialized evolution to want to eat and commune with the people in my community, right? So when I sit down and I'm watching YouTube videos, I'm fulfilling that. And I'm wondering if that would count as that horizontal transcendence.
Well, I'm no arbiter, but I would think definitely. And it's not just people, I talked about other ways I see horizontal transcendence operating. And it's not just people. It's it can be time, and it can be like a more global perspective too. And that's not just people, but technology is, it doesn't really matter what technology you use. You're obviously connecting to something larger and something outside yourself and your immediate surroundings.
Yeah, I was specifically looking at because again, you want to watch that line of, are we talking something spiritual? No, we're talking something transcendent. Would be that feeling or that sensation of almost something, deeper, right? When we're talking deep, I mean back in time, right? That drives for that horizontal connection. And the last thing I wanted to mention.
That's a fascinating anecdote. Thank you.
Yeah, and the last thing I want to mention was a plug. So I am starting a secular community, atheist, all of the terms, humanist / horizontally transcendent, like-minded people, Freethought, to get Margaret in there, a business network, right? There's an app called Chamberforge. I'm a website developer myself. I'm thinking, what better way, since I'm a entrepreneur myself, and I like doing business. I like doing business with people I know that may or may not think more clearly than the general masses, but are definitely not going to discriminate against me because I'm a vocal atheist. So that's it on the plug. I'm Jason Hoblin everywhere online. So get a hold of me if you're an entrepreneur, and I would love to help build some of that community through business.
Great.
Nice to meet you, Jason.
Thank you, Jason. And thank you, Tom. I think that brings us up to the last question. Looks like Nina just posted something in there for anyone. So I guess after we wrap this up, if anybody has last minute questions, they can always ask you that. But for right now, would everyone with me please join in and give Tom a big thank you and a big round of applause, everyone.
Thank you. That was a lot of fun and fascinating. Great comments and questions.
Well, I want to take this opportunity to not only thank Tom Krattenmaker again, but also to thank Victoria de la Torre for the very nice introduction. Great job, Victoria. And
My pleasure, Margaret.
Thanks also to Michael Stephen Martin for being our co-host today. And
thank you.
We really enjoy bringing all of you these Zoom presentations, and there are more to come. Please join us on Saturday, October 10th at noon Pacific Daylight Time, 3 o'clock Pacific p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, when we will be hosting Andrew Siddell. His speech is entitled, The Founding Myth, Why Christian Nationalism is Un-American, and it's based on his book of the same name. So please see the Freethought Society meetup descriptions for more details. And for those who would like to stay to socialize, we take a 5 to 10 minute break and meet you right back here at 5, oh, it's 4:25, right? Can't see my clock from here. Anyway,
it's 1:15 here on the West Coast, 1:15.
It's close enough here on the East Coast that I'm going to go grab a glass of wine and come back for a little happy hour with all of you. So thanks again. Yeah. Thanks again for attending, and thank you to those who already donated to help us continue bringing these educational and entertaining events. And as we break, a friend of mine sent me a song that I'll play during the break. And it's an original song, and it's written for the time that we are going through. So if you want to go about your business with listening to the song, here it is. Oops. Let's see, here we go. That's not it. Sorry. Ah, there he is, okay. So share screen and share, and here we go. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
I can.
When I think of what we got and how wonderful life is, I want everyone to know we're all in this together. We're all in this together. Some parts are rough, I know. Some days are tough, I know. Still, it helps to remember we're all in this together. We're all in this together. There's no magic wand, there's no secret key, no one to save us except for you and me. You just can't make a wish and make things go away. Heaven and hell are dreams, but love is here to stay. We're all in this together. We're all in this together. There's no magic wand, there's no secret key, no one to save us except for you and me. You just can't make a wish and make things go away. Heaven and hell are dreams, but love is here to stay. We're all in this together. We're all in this together. When I think what we've got, how wonderful life is, want everyone to know we're all in this together. We're all in this together.
What'd you think?
That was good.
Wasn't that great?
Unmute and clap. Yes. He made an appearance with a song at your birthday as well.
Yes, he's a great artist. He has a weekly concert on his Facebook page. Totally free.
Is he someone who lives out in your neck of the woods, or is he West Coast, or where is he?
He's Abraham Stephen Mackey, and he lives in California. He lives somewhere in the Fresno area. I've never met him in person.
Really?
I've only communicated with him on the internet, and he's such a great performer. When he does his weekly concerts, he can read who's in attendance, and he'll ask for different stories about a song, or he'll ask for requests, and then he gets you really involved with his concert. I enjoy it.
That's cool.
Oh, and then he also has themes. He'll do like Beatles night, or Tom Petty night. Always good. I think it's amazing when people can memorize so many songs.
Never misses a chord or a lyric, huh?
Do you play a musical instrument, Tom?
Yeah, I used to actually perform a little bit, and I used to write tons of songs back when I was in my late 20s and 30s. I performed around Philadelphia, Margaret, like places like the Tin Angel, and sometimes at the Theater of the Living Arts.
Oh my
TLA,
God, I love the Tin Angel.
and a bunch of coffee houses. But I'm retired from all of that now, and now I just listen to a lot of music.
What's your instrument?
I play guitar and harmonica and vocal cords.
Wow, you're gonna have to come be our house guest.
That'd be really fun.
I have a piano and a guitar, and you could
I haven't played it for a long time. I still love music, but I lost interest in playing.
So Michael's put up a poll, and it's what a week you've had. How can you vote on that? You
just click. You can vote. What kind of week have you had in the past week on a scale of 1 to 10? You just click whatever your answer is. It's all anonymous, and we'll just see the percentages, and we can see how our people are doing.
I think hosts can't vote. I could be wrong, but
yeah, just type in a number, huh?
I think hosts cannot vote. I believe I'm not able to vote. Let me see.
That's okay. I don't want to vote.
You don't? Okay. Tom, let's see if I can remove your co-host, and then maybe in Victoria, maybe then that'll allow you to vote.
I just voted publicly, I think.
Oh, did you? Oh, there you go. I see it.
I'm not quite sure how to do this.
Oh, well.
Everybody knows, okay?
I hope you can double that next week. An eight week would be a good one.
That would be good.
I have a lady in one of my social groups who said she lives on 8. No matter what happens, she's always at an 8. That's just her standard. It's her philosophy. It's her approach to life. So,
give me a smile, Michael. I want to take a screenshot.
Sorry, again, Margaret?
Give me a smile. I want to take a screenshot from you.
Okay.
But you have to spotlight yourself.
Oh, okay.
Ready? Set?
Yes.
Can I come up here?
Okay.
Tom, can I get a screenshot of you?
He's a great
guy.
guy.
How do I highlight myself?
I'll spotlight you, Tom.
I got it.
Oh, it is spotlighted. Thank you.
You have to sit up. Now there's, okay, right there. Oh, no, scoot back a little. Oh, there you go. Yeah, perfect. There's
You got the Portland Timbers scarves in the photo, I hope.
well, when you move forward, you must have a window next to you or something.
I do, and the light, the sun moves. Did you know that?
Yeah.
And the light in this room has been changing.
You know, tides go in, tides go out. You
They
can't
do that?
find that.
If I was a little bit more horizontally aware, maybe I'd be up on that stuff, like tides and like the sun moving.
Who else can I get a screenshot of? Jeff.
May
You take these screenshots of me, I think they're horrible.
Jeff,
Yes.
sit up.
Sit up.
There you go. Jeff.
Hi.
Now, this is a guy who really practices what he professes. He is a very altruistic person. He's come over and helped me with so many things that I needed done, and you know, just a great friend. I love you, Jeff.
Love you too. Thank you.
Yay,
I'm very
Jeff.
glad to help you.
And Marjorie, there you are.
Oh, there I am. I had to take a phone call, so I went into radio silence for a moment.
Marjorie has just become a grandmama.
Yes, I am.
I got a screenshot of your excited face.
Yes, twins. I got twins. I got my first and second grandchild at the same time. Well, 3 minutes apart.
Congratulations.
But, anyway.
Nature's clones.
Yeah, no, they're not clones. Boy and a girl, definitely not clones.
Okay. Okay. No, Rob, I got a screenshot of you asking your question. I'll send it to you. If you provide me with your email address.
Okay, I'll send it.
All right.
Our mailing list too.
Still waiting to see if anybody in this group had a 10 last week. And so far, no 10s, but we do have a 9. We got a couple 8s. Those are good weeks. I'd like to know your secret.
Well, I would have had a much better week had it not been for the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg last night.
Horrible. Just horrible. It's a catastrophe. It really is.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
So a friend of mine, Jay Wexler, he is an author of a book, and he used to actually be the assistant for Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And I hosted him one time as a speaker, and I thought, how can I introduce Jay Wexler in the best way I could possibly introduce him? And so what I did was, knowing that he used to work with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, let me share this.
Wow.
I introduced Jay Wexler dressed as Ruth Bader Ginsburg. There we go. And it totally surprised Jay. That's me introducing him to be our speaker. I didn't let on that I was going to do this at all. I arrived to the site, you know, in my regular clothes, and then I ran over and put this costume on. And he was so happy. But I later learned what I learned about this. I brought this red pen purposely, because he told me that every time he submitted his opinions to her, that she would take her red marker and just, you know, go through all of what he said and, you know, like cross this off and cross that off. And she was very exact, and he was kind of scared of her.
That's a funny photo.
So you can see that in his face. Jay Wexler wrote a book called Holy Hullabaloos. It is such a fantastic book. He talks about U.S. Supreme Court decisions in such a humorous way that you can't help but laugh out loud, and yet you're learning something. And this is when we were all done at the end of the event. We're all taking our picture. That's Glenn Love on the right, who's the vice president of the Freethought Society. Jay Wexler, that's me as Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And then that's Hugh Taft Morales, who we co-host events with at the Philadelphia Ethical Society. And then we hammed it up a little bit. But that was not the first time I dressed as Ruth Bader Ginsburg. The first time was when I hosted, what was his name? The fellow that went to, here it is.
Which guy?
There it is. That was at a college when I was hosting this fellow, and I can't remember his name.
He looks familiar.
Yeah. He went to the Supreme Court over the Pledge of Allegiance case. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg commented afterwards that Michael Newdow, yeah, Michael Newdow. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg actually said that he gave the best oral argument she had ever heard.
Wow.
So I secretly dressed as Ruth Bader Ginsburg before he was to speak and walked out and introduced him. And that was that night.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, Michael Newdow is a great guy. Yeah. He tried hard, but he lost on the standing of his case.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do I get out of this? Stop share. There we go. Anyway, thanks for
I just want to come by and say bye to everyone. I have to go back with the kids, but thank you so much for such a great talk.
Thanks for the nice introduction.
Oh, of course. Unfortunately, we have to do everything by Zoom, but I am happy that fortunately I can attend these talks now because I'm all the way on the West Coast. So it's been a change, but it's had its benefits. So yeah. Thank you so much for the talk. Bye, everyone.
You're welcome.
For coming, Victoria. See you soon.
I'm just going to give a little plug before I also have to go, but this Sunday at the Ethical Society in Philadelphia, I will be the featured Zoom presenter doing my program as Susan B. Anthony, which will include a 25-minute pre-recorded video followed by Q&A. So I encourage anyone who's interested to come and check that out.
Can you drop a link in the chat, please?
Maybe. Susan B. Anthony and I are about equal in our technical abilities. Yes, I should be able to find that. Hold on, I won't leave right away. I will find that for you.
And Marjorie, could you send it on to the Freethought Society so we can set up a meetup or something? I'd love for people to see that.
Oh, sure. Hold on a minute. Let me see what I can find. Okay, talk amongst yourselves.
I have a related question for Margaret and I guess Michael. So the thing we did today, is that going to be available after the fact for people to replay the video?
Yes.
Okay, because some people on my mailing list asked if they could watch it later. So I'll share it with the mailing list after the next time I send out something.
Well, I'll have to get you a link.
Okay.
I'm currently I'm recording the Zoom. I'll put it on a flash drive and give it to Margaret. She'll load it to the Freethought Society YouTube channel. That way others can watch it there.
Great.
Yeah. And we loved it, and we'll promote your books as well.
That's so nice. Thank you.
Of course. That's what we're here for.
Among other things.
Okay, I got it. Hold on 1 second. Just 1 second. Where'd we go here?
So what kind of happy hour,
again.
What kind of happy hour beverages are the East Coast people enjoying right now so the West Coast has something to look forward to?
I have white wine.
Lukewarm water.
Why can't I find anybody?
No need to feel envious of what I have.
I want to right now.
Tom, you might need to have a drink before you watch the Wishes video.
Okay, here is the link.
Yay!
Yay!
Oh,
All right.
thank you.
Okay. It'll be distressingly early for folks on the West Coast. But sorry about that.
Is such a wonderful, wonderful Susan B. Anthony. She and I have gone to several colleges to register students to vote. She's dressed as Susan B. Anthony and I'm dressed as Alice Paul. And we're stressing the fact that it took women so long to get the vote. You need to vote. You need to register to vote. And we tell our stories, and you know, she's a wonderful actress.
Well, I will, to be self-deprecating here, the video I don't think is as good as my live performances, but I had to do something, so I did something. Oh, there you go. There you go. You're going to picture me on there. Okay. It's going to be the hottest thing happening in Philly next weekend.
Totally. Yay, Marjorie.
Yay.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I had to consent to videotape my program if I was going to have any exposure at all during this. So I have done that, but I follow with Q&A so you can get very direct with me. And I do Q&A as Susan B. Anthony, so I'll be all dressed up and ready to go.
And here you are at the 100-year anniversary of the passage of
the 19th Amendment. I know this was going to be my big year, my really, really, really big year, but whatever. My problems are small. I shouldn't. And it's never a wrong time to invite Susan B. Anthony to address your group. So there you are.
Never a wrong time. Okay.
Okay, never a wrong time. Okay. So I'm going to say bye-bye. What?
You have a picture of the twins before you leave.
Ay, ay, ay. You are really making it hard for me here. Let me see if I can share my.
Because I'll tell you what is transistent. The feeling I get when I see a baby's face.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's a great example.
It is. Oh, it does it for me for sure.
It's transcendence for me.
Mm-hmm.
To view a new life and to see this beauty of what human beings can
see if I can do this, but I'm not.
There's no God or mystic notions about it. It's just life.
Yeah.
That is a really great point. I may have to work that into the next time I give this talk, which is happening very soon, by the way.
Yeah.
And actually, you can have a slideshow and you can show all these beautiful baby faces. And everybody goes, ah!
I'll have to work that in.
You
That's
just want to be careful, Tom, because atheists are known for eating babies. So if you start bringing in food and babies as transcendent concepts, people may think you're going somewhere.
Margaret, I'll send you some pictures under separate cover, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Well, nice to see you. But I'm very happy about having had the chance to be with you today, and thanks for the receptivity to my message.
Bye, Tom.
Bye, y'all.
Hey, thank you, Tom. It's nice to meet you. I'll talk soon.
Talk soon.
Hey, I see John Mader is online with us. Hi, John.
Is that J-O-H-N? He's muted.
J-O-N. J-O-N.
J-O-N.
I'm at the airport. I'm sorry. That's why I couldn't join you earlier.
He wrote a wonderful article in the Freethought Society News that was published. So thank you for that, John.
Thank you for the copy. And yeah. So how did the talk go? Was this recorded?
Yes.
Okay. Well, this is going to be
Where are you off
busy,
to?
Back to Austin. I'm in St. Louis.
We got a couple travelers in the room right now. We got Bruce on the road. We got John about to take flight. Is anybody getting in a boat somewhere? I'm going to take a long walk. Hey, Amy, how are you? Nice to see you.
So how come you're in St. Louis? That's where I'm from.
I'm moving. I'm retiring at the end of the year, and I'm moving back to Southern Illinois. So I'm sort of shuttling back and forth.
Oh.
So I've got to fly back because I'm still working. But luckily, the airport's pretty empty.
John, what part of Southern Illinois?
Salem, which is downstate. Pretty.
Is that near Peoria at all?
Oh no, it's straight. It's south of there. It's straight east of St. Louis.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
There's a wonderful Robert Green Ingersoll statue in Peoria, Illinois that you might want
Yeah,
to
I'll have to visit that.
Yeah.
I know he lived in Mount Vernon for a while, which is 30 miles, 25 miles from Salem.
Hmm.
So.
Well, keep your eyes out for Ingersoll memorabilia when you're in Illinois.
Oh, I want to do that. I want to go by someplace in Mount Vernon and see if I could maybe find something about him.
Well, if you do, the museum is always anxious to get donations.
I could probably get you plenty of William Jennings Bryan stuff. That's where he was born, in Salem, Illinois. And I'm living on property that was deeded to him 100 years ago. Actually, I think it was to his wife because she had to convey it over to him.
Well,
which
I don't know
was
if
not unusual.
Honor him too much.
I know. You know, William Jennings Bryan, he's got a big statue about 2 blocks from my house.
Yeah, but you know, we put up a Clarence Darrow statue on the same grounds as the monkey trial took place, and on the other side is the Bryan statue.
Well, it'd be nice to have an Ingersoll statue right next to his in the park, but don't think that's going to happen.
No.
Because really nobody knows who he was anyway.
Well, we want to change all that.
Well, I'm talking about William Jennings Bryan.
Oh.
Okay, well, I guess I'll let you guys go.
Okay.
Happy travels, John. Safe travels.
Have a good flight.
I have to say my vote for best name in the room all day, anti-supernaturalist, Chrislamic Talibaptist. That's quite a mouthful.
Who is he?
I honestly don't know, although the eyes look...
Finally someone is noticing it.
It's Bukowski. It's Bukowski.
Finally. Thank you.
Who is it?
Klaus, your eyes, even though you had the mask, your eyes look so familiar, but I couldn't pick the name because I was trying to interpret your Zoom name, and then as soon as I saw your eyes and your voice, I knew exactly.
I take it as a compliment. What's that? Oh, it's me. It's me. It's me.
Yeah.
It's my last name. Just that,
yes.
You know.
Yes, you joined me for a Bukowski themed event. The Zoom,
That's right. Yeah, and Margaret was that too, right?
Margaret Downey and Charles Bukowski were born on the same day, 30 years apart.
Wow.
And I also share a birth date with Madonna and Kathy Lee Gifford. So what does that say about astrology? It's bullshit.
Yes, I have the same birthday as Fernando Valenzuela, the pitcher from the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I remember that as a kid. That so wowed me. I thought that was fantastic. He's probably only a couple years older than me now that I think about it. As a kid, he seemed like a full-grown adult. Fernando Valenzuela. Let me see how old he is now.
Hey guys, I'm gonna take off.
Bye, Jeff.
Jeff,
Bye.
good seeing you, buddy. Enjoy the rest of your day, man. See you soon.
Yeah.
It's bright there right now. Usually when I see Jeff, it's dark because we're zooming at night.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, Fernando Valenzuela is 59. I'm 48. Wow, he's 11 years older than me. Okay.
Wow.
He'll be 60 next year, yeah. He played 17 major league seasons. Okay, fascinating. Interesting. All right. Didn't know he was around that long. What's everybody got going on the rest of the weekend?
Christina. Hello.
She appeared.
Ah.
Hi, Christina.
Hi, Christine.
Hey, did everybody in California feel the terrible earthquake?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I did.
I was asleep. I thought a cat had jumped into my bed, and then I thought maybe I dreamt it because I didn't hear any shaking. I just felt the bed jump like a cat had jumped on it. And then I thought maybe I was asleep, so I ignored it.
Yeah, it was.
I felt it and then thought, wow, 2020 wouldn't be complete without it.
Where were you, Christina?
I'm at Heretic House last night, and the house. I have not felt an earthquake that strong. I don't think ever. It felt strong. I mean, it was only 4.8, but I guess I was close enough to the epicenter on the second level of a house. So for me, it was a powerful quake.
Yeah. Well,
It rolled. It like lasted longer. It wasn't like a quick shake. It was nice. Yeah, my dogs, you can tell they're from California because they were like chill. They stood up and kind of wagged their tails, and then they laid back down. They were fine.
So it's a 4.5 magnitude. San Diego, Valencia, and San Fernando Valleys felt it 10 hours ago. I haven't read any of the details. I didn't even know it actually happened until a minute ago when you mentioned it.
No.
Yeah, I was awake when it happened.
I literally thought I had either dreamt it or it was just me imagining the bed moving. So, okay.
you have a cat, Michael?
I don't. That's why I thought I was dreaming. It kind of startled me. I shook like, what the heck was that? It felt like an animal jumped up here. And I looked around and nothing was moving. And I thought it could have been an earthquake, but I didn't hear any shaking. So I just thought I probably just jolted myself out of a dream. And that's it. I didn't know anything happened until Jason mentioned it.
Wow.
Well, I think what happened was, I think Southern California at this point just realized that RBG died, and then it all happened. Everything broke loose.
Feeling
Yeah.
the after effects, aftershocks.
Well, get ready for the locusts next week.
It's going to be horrible. I mean, it really makes me sad because when Obama was president, the Republicans pushed one in on the Supreme Court. And unfortunately, I wish I could say we're strong enough to fight, but I kind of don't. Mitch McConnell and Trump are already saying they're going to push somebody in to replace her.
I know. And it's a woman who is anti-abortion. And, it's going to be horrible.
Oh, they picked the nominee already?
Yeah, there's talk about a certain woman, and
there's a short list of like 4 to 5 or something like that.
Mm.
The woman's like the crazy combative pick, but there's like 2 more neutral picks that they could go with. They're still awful, but they're less,
This is something I'm willing to put money on. I mean, to help. Like, this is something that I think is extremely important. I mean, we cannot let them pick the next nominee. I mean, it's going to have consequences for the rest of our lives, whoever they put in there.
There's really nothing. If they want to put someone in, they can put someone in. There's nothing you can do to stop it.
Well, I don't understand. Why did we let them put somebody in when Obama was president? I didn't understand how they were capable of doing that.
And we had an opening in the Supreme Court, even pre a longer period of time than now.
So
yet there's talk that we're just not going to be able to stop it.
So the answer to that is pretty simple. Mitch McConnell is, when he was as the Senate Majority Leader, he chooses what the Senate votes on. So that's why he's known as the Grim Reaper, because there are hundreds of bills that he will not bring up for a vote. And he has gone on record as saying he will not bring up a vote if he either knows that it's going to be voted down and he doesn't want to have any Republicans to have a public stance on that, or it's something that he doesn't want to happen. So that's what happened with the Supreme Court nominations, is he just refused to bring it to a vote. He took his power and he ran with it, and essentially took the ball and ran home. And that's why there's nothing you can do to stop this, because he has the power to bring this to a vote. And then the rules for it are also, like for judiciary appointments, they clarified the rules because they can do that. So now the maximum time for non-Supreme Court appointments is, I think, 3 hours is how long they can talk about a judicial appointment before they have to make a vote on it. And they're probably going to do something similar for the Supreme Court nominations at some point.
I mean,
Possibly for
remember
this
the
one.
sniveling Kavanaugh? Remember him sniveling up there?
Yes.
And he still got passed.
Disgusting.
Christy Bassey Ford, I think I'm saying her name right, who sounded completely credible, her story. I mean, I was raised Catholic and went to parties like that, and she sounded completely believable and he didn't, and now he's on the Supreme Court. It's just shocking.
Disgusting.
Do you like beer? Like, is that not the only accreditation you need for the Supreme Court?
Right.
It just seems like somehow if they were able to sabotage us getting in, I mean, I know you said Mitch McConnell, but somehow we should be able to sabotage them being able to put somebody in until after the next election.
The only way
that far off.
The only way to do that is to get 4 Republican senators to not want to vote in someone. And there's no reason for them to not want to do that. And I just listened to the law podcast version of this, like before they get, so even him going through with his really big optimistic thing, there's only like 3 Republican senators you might be able to switch. And then that means the tie goes to Pence. So there's no reason for them not to put someone in. There is, unless they care about saving face, which they've proven that they don't care about. So
right.
And even if they did pretend to care about losing face, they have 2 months after the election in which they can just ram it in anyway. So I thought they were going to do that, is just pretend to care about it up until the election, and then as soon as the election was done, just ram someone in then, because then at that point it doesn't matter.
Well, I'm really hoping that the statement she made on her deathbed, that she didn't want her replacement to be chosen by this president, will be honored.
You know, I posted that on a couple of Facebook groups last night. We need to unite to fight to grant Ginsburg's wish. And then I had an article.
And we did a hashtag, grant her wish, or final words of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, or something to the effect that we can just get this going, where we try to honor her legacy by not letting this happen.
Yeah, like the only real way out of it is if you can somehow get a super majority in there so that you can impeach the judges, because I think that's the only way to get them out, is that you have to impeach them.
Well, the other way out of it is the Andrew Yang proposal of, you don't give the Supreme Court justices lifelong terms. You just give them a set term, and that would end a lot of this issue of so I would say if you would lose that conflict of which president's going to nominate, would lose that conflict if there were term limits.
I think the other possibility is to I don't see any way out of the Senate not appointing who they want for their side. So I think the only other possibility would be if we had sorry, my phone. If Trump loses, then the Democratic majority would increase the number of Supreme Court appointees. So we increase the number from what we have now to maybe.
Yeah, but if you float that as an idea, what's to stop the Republicans from doing that the second they get into power again, right? Like you're starting an arms race with that, and it's not really it's a maintainable one until eventually you've got like a 400-person Supreme Court. Because it's like,
I'm counting on the Republicans dying out. So, you know, if they die out just out of a generation, and that whole mentality dies out, then that will be kind of a moot. The number of Supreme Court justices will no longer be a big issue.
But we will be stuck in the meantime with all of this residue religiosity and these conservatives getting their way. And we have to live with that, with their decisions, with the encroachment, the complete removal of the separation of church and state and Jeffersonian wall. I'm going to be anxious to have Andrew Siddell as our next speaker, because maybe he'll give us some hope. But I'm very, very negative about our future.
You know what I appreciate about our community, which I was actually just telling my mother recently, is that, you know, when I was for practicing Catholic, the Catholics are probably really happy right now that they're going to be able to replace, because so many of them care so much about pro-life. And it's just nice to be in a community that we don't even need to discuss whether it's a good idea, whether the Republicans do the replacement or the next president does. We all agree, right? I mean, nobody in this group is saying, oh, no, that's not right. We need to let the Trump pick the replacement. Nobody's saying that. I mean, it's just nice that our values seem to usually be, I mean, we don't agree on everything. Obviously, there's disagreements, but for the most part, the basis of the secular community, or whatever we're called, free thinkers, skeptics, we usually tend
Nobody
to
here
kind of,
thinks life starts at conception.
what?
No one thinks life starts at conception, that zygotes have rights.
Right. No one's calling that the equivalent of a baby, when the sperm just meets the egg, right?
Or the climax is the beginning of life.
Oh, I haven't heard
Wait
that.
a minute, I got it. The big,
feels like the end.
My life began.
the Big Bang Theory. Life begins.
That's how life began. Well, wait, no.
Well, now we know why on the seventh day he had to rest. He was worn out. If you do it right, life ends at conception. Sorry, that was.
No, we
I
need.
missed it. I want to hear it again.
It's the heat and the earthquake. It's the heat and the earthquake.
Oh no, we need to laugh, people. We just need to laugh.
Christine, you missed my picture. It says dressed up as Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
I did see it. I caught. I was dozing in and out of the presentation. That's why I had my video shut off, because I didn't sleep last night very well. So I was catching it. I got the gist of it, but I would, anyway, here I'm waking up now.
Well, we recorded the presentation, so you can watch it later on the Freethought Society YouTube channel.
There you go.
Yeah, we're coming up on the hour, guys. I'm going to take off. Thanks again, Margaret, and everyone from SoCal Secular putting this on. Great talk.
Thanks, Jason. Good to see you, man. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
I'm going to take off too. It was a really good, thank you for organizing this.
Thank you. I'm going to take off too.
Yeah. Why don't we just.
All right. Bye, everybody.
All right.
Thank
you. Good night, everybody. Thanks for coming. See you next time.
See you next time.